Welcome to this episode of Fargonauts where we watch Twin Peaks because it's super cozy and relaxing, and I want to get in the spooky vibes of October, and it's just around the corner. So we're very close. It's like next month or next week, right?
It's it's
Yeah.
both.
It is
It's
both,
next month
but it's like
and
next
it's
week.
next week.
It's already like the 20. What is it? 26th. It's 26th.
Six.
So yeah, we're
Look at us! Look at us, big boys with our big boy calendar pants on.
yeah. Sitting right at the
Monkey!
computer. It says 26 right in my face. I had to move my microphone, but I see it. My taskbar.
Yeah.
The evidence.
All right. We're headed into episode 7. Wait, are you sleeping yet?
Is it? No, I was like trying to figure out numbers. Like 5? No,
I
7.
think is it 6? Because we were talking about this before. Means of detecting for you.
I think we're on episode 5, the one-armed man, because we did Rest in Pain, where
Yeah.
Leland was, going down that conveyor of the casket, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then
Yeah.
Shelley did a wonderful rendition.
and then Bobby was like, "Hey man!"
we were looking at that.
So yes, we're on episode 5, the one-armed man. Beautifully titled, because now we get to understand who this one-armed guy is that keeps popping up.
Well, we at least get to meet him. I don't know if we get to understand anything about him.
We get to meet.
anything else.
Well, we get some understanding that, hey, let's actually find out this character. Maybe he has a name. Maybe what happened to his arm? Like,
Well, there's a weird correlation between this and The Fugitive.
that's true.
Philip Gerard, the one-armed man. I don't know.
So yeah, I'm excited to jump into this one. Broadshow's excited to start his din din. So let's get going.
I suppose salad to a sandwich.
Broadshow sandwich.
That's the fucking cottage cheese. is it?
Beautiful cottage cheese under
Not the
the
under the sink cottage cheese.
sink.
Between some
Not that one.
bread,
That's some cheesy rice too.
got 7 different things, and they're all on a sandwich.
And suck a fucking dick and then
I've also got these nuts. These nuts. This sack.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit as we watch this slow mo shoot shooting range scene here. We, like I said, we met the one armed man, and we found out there's a lot of different dynamics with all these kind of crossroads and people's uncovering of like the mystery for themselves. Like we have James going to the site of where the necklace was buried, and we found out a little bit more about the connection with Leo and the One-Eyed Jacks, and like the interactions with Horn, and because we haven't seen that prior, right? There was no like connection with Leo and Horn.
If there was, it was just like a phone conversation, I think. I don't think we've seen those two together in that way.
Oh, jeez, here we go.
Wiggle his hips.
Like how he's still surprised that it's firing. Dang, man.
Oh.
Let's see. Yeah, and we found there's Andy is a great police sketch artist.
yeah,
This is the man of my dreams. And then let's see. Yeah, here we go.
Fresh out of the shower.
Fresh out of the shower, looking nice and clean. This poor shoe salesman, one-armed shoe salesman. Um, yeah, can we talk a little bit about that interaction of them like having a lead on a character, but leading it down kind of like a dead end because they found this one-armed man. They talked to him, and this whole time we're thinking like, oh, this guy seems bad. Like he always shows up at the hospital and he's all dressed in black. But then we realize that he was just going to visit one of his friends in a coma, whose name was Bob.
Bob Light.
Uh-oh.
But then, like, he was also in one of the visions or dream sequences that Coop had, where he was reciting the poem of "Fire Walk with Me" and talking about we lived above what do you call convenience store. I mean it like it is, like it sounds. Saying a bunch of weird crap and
Yeah, that was definitely like his breakthrough that he had. He's like, that's when he called Harry and he started snapping his fingers. He's like, I know who killed Laura Palmer. It was after that.
one-armed man. We must find him.
And then this interaction here, like, hey, I know
Yeah.
who killed, or I want to find out who killed Laura. She's a wild girl. She's getting into all different trouble at One Eye Jacks and
There's
getting into this cocaine and
there's other characters who start their own investigations that are separate than the law enforcement's investigation into Laura's death.
mhm.
And it's like this is just one of many because it continues like gosh pretty much like up until the point where we and everybody else learns who kind of like gets for snookered for this thing. But then even after that there's obviously still people doing their own investigations into like okay but why.
Yeah,
But this is one of the first because we will get like James and Donna doing their own investigations, which we already do in this episode, and a little bit like of their conspiring in previous episodes.
hmm
They're gonna launch their own investigation. She's gonna go into the Meals for Wheels and go meet the recluse guy.
and we talked a little bit about and maybe Wilson, you have a better context of the connections with the movie The Fugitive, and you mentioned it a little bit, but we weren't recording at that moment. But do you want to just talk a little bit about the connections, especially with this episode being called The One Armed Man?
It's just I've never seen the TV show, but I looked it up because I know somebody had mentioned it before that there was like some weird connection to The Fugitive where the character in this, his name is Philip Gerard, and in the TV show The Fugitive, the police officer, I believe, who's chasing Richard Kimball is Lieutenant Philip Gerard. And Richard Kimball, in at least the movie version of The Fugitive, he's saying, "Oh, there's this one-armed man that actually killed my wife." So
And
it's like a proxy search for the one-armed man through Philip Gerard, and it seems like they just like meshed the two together.
yeah, and in the movie with Tommy Lee Jones, he plays Samuel Gerard, so it's still
Okay.
a Gerard, but not. Yeah, I don't know what inspired what. Or
It must. I mean, I think it was probably Lynch just taking some inspiration from something he had been exposed to when The Fugitive was on TV, and there's been people that have talked about their ideas of how he was through the production of this in a meta-sensual, like metatextual way. He was like commenting on television itself and filmmaking, storytelling, and all these things. And so it's just kind of in that ball of wax, maybe that like he liked the Fugitive TV show and he wanted to, or maybe maybe it's a Mark Frost thing. I don't know.
that could be too. Yeah. Yeah, who knows if these paths that they go down lead to anywhere of substance, but the mystery of it all is interesting, and for the audience, there's so many things you can like latch onto as like points of interest. Like, oh man, we found out that Leo killed a dude named Bernie in this episode. Like, well, who's this Bernie character?
Yeah, we've never seen we never actually see that. The only time we see that character is when he's wrapped up in that burlap sack.
Exactly. So like all these different dynamics were is really at the forefront of this episode, and having a perception of these characters like the one armed man prior, and then kind of learning a little bit more about him, um, helped. And then this scene here, I want to watch it again. Tennis
Yeah,
ski masks.
this is like
Pure.
1,000,000% the kind of like background subtext stuff that I remember from Twin Peaks is like the tennis match like that, or like in a future episode, there's a barbershop quartet that's like hanging out behind Dale and Albert during breakfast, and they're just like smoke. They're all smoking cigarettes together.
It's just so bizarre. It's like here's how we start this scene at this place, and then we just like
Good game.
quick pan over to Coop, just being like, "I'm ready. Let's break in. Come on, guys, get your guns."
I've got justice on my mind.
Good game.
No time for tennis. Well, yeah. The To me, this is the beginning of how I see like a lot of the middle episodes of these two seasons, where it's like we get introduced to the characters, we get the major broad strokes of like, okay, here's a little bit of intrigue here, a little bit of intrigue here. Like we know our A story is the investigation of Laurel Palmer, but we get a little bit of B, C, D story, and now it's starting to do the fun, weird thing that Twin Peaks does with its characters, where they like start to overlap in these weird little ways, and then that expands into like an F story, or maybe later down the line a G story comes from something that happens now. It's just like
Yeah, I'd like to see
it
that
really
flow
starts to
chart.
just branch off in these tiny, tiny little ways.
The one episode where Truman was talking, like he brought Coop over to interview that or to interrogate that one guy that was French. And he was like, "I don't know nothing" or whatever, Or he talked kind of like a Rastafari and was like, "Hey man, I don't know." But he was like talking about there's a darkness in Twin Peaks. In the forest, people have claimed that spirits or whatever. Like he got really spooky about that the aura of Twin Peaks, and like not just this death or this murder. There's a darkness out there that you know we have dedicated our time to protect this town against. Even just that, even if it's just kind of like some kind of like moody thing you say to like an organization to it's like we're fighting the good fight no matter what, even if it is like ethereal and not tangible. I can take it literally. Like, yeah, there's some spooky shit and possession and whatever else that leads people down these crazy paths that they take. Um, I find that more interesting, a little bit more interesting, because there's so much to glean from than Laura Palmer's death. It's like that's a good catalyst, but then like going even further down that dark path, like about the darkness and about like the spirits and things like that, I was like, oh, that's even more interesting to me.
Yeah, so that's like where a lot of the super interesting stuff to me is in like the secret history and the final dossier, is when, especially in the secret history, because that's what it's about, is the history of the town and some of the people. They talk about like the area up near Glastonbury Grove, which is the circle of 12 sycamore trees, I think it is. That like that's where the pool of oil is, where Dale crosses over later and everything. Um, in the secret history, they talk about one of the Milford brothers when he was young, going with his scout troop on a camping trip up to like was it the Pearl Lakes, I think, and in the middle of the night there was like this huge storm, and he went outside to go secure some stuff and saw this like 8 foot tall half owl half human figure, and like there are recountings of Margaret Lanternman, the log lady, her abduction by aliens, and all kinds of ghost stories from like the old fur trapper days of Owl Cave and stuff. Yeah, it's when they're talking about the darkness out in the woods, it is, I think,
The woods.
pretty literal.
I've trapped some fur in my day, if you know what I'm saying.
Bradshaw, this is very rare that you stayed up during the whole episode. What did you think about it?
Yeah, it was good. It was definitely one of those building intrigue episodes, you know? Kind of building on things.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of stuff happened, but we were building on learning some new stuff and putting some pieces in place.
This William holding a gun here. I didn't notice that there's also a pair of stuffed hooves that are holding a gun beneath the goat's head.
Yep.
Oh, William. Yeah.
Oh, William.
There's so like it's crazy how many episodes and how far into the show we continue to get episodes like this where it's like you said, building intrigue. It's like even up until the mystery of who killed Laura Palmer is solved or other things, it's like we're still building intrigue. What are we building towards, or why, or what does it mean?
Mm-hmm. And it's also like we've discussed at even the first episode that the atmosphere and just the vibe of this show is like timeless. Like you can revisit this show and just feel that kind of like, oh, I'm back in this place. I like these people. I like this world. I don't really like the nature of like who killed Laura Palmer comes way further down. Like yes, it's all like the catalyst, like I said, but even after you found out who what happened to her and all these different connections that you can make, revisiting this show every once in a while, it's like, oh, I'm visiting friends again. It's like the atmosphere and everything about it was so well crafted that it's like I just like to revisit these people again and see what they're doing.
It's interesting too how like you could just watch a compilation of every like scene that takes place in the sheriff's station, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and that could certainly be very enjoyable. I could see many things I would enjoy about that, but also I think there is something to be said about the variety of scenes that we get in here and how they kind of like tonally influence the next or each other in ways.
Right.
Without some of this weird context of Hank drawing a domino and sending it to her, and the music and everything in the little lodge here, would the other scenes hit as the same way that they do?
Right.
Or without Donna and James having their little romantic moment. And it's like a really weird stylistic choice. Like I don't know that I've really seen that done in many other movies because they're not trying to reach for the same things or they're not trying to accomplish the same things. I don't know. It's just and like the obviously like the dream sequences and some of the designs and things like that lead it to be a bit more dreamy, but I don't know that I think that also sets its own atmosphere through some of those tools, like you were saying. Like it just does such a spectacular job of setting atmosphere.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think of what else he's maybe adapted that's not his entirely, but yeah. The Elephant Man story, yeah.
Well, I think it might have even been like a stage play or had some other format before.
Yeah, it's a real life story. I know that.
Well, and obviously, yeah, John Merrick, but like, I don't know.
John Mayer?
John Mayer, the Elephant Man.
The Elephant Man.
Yeah,
Give me a little bit of John Mayer, Bradshaw. I gotta hear the music and picture it in my head.
Like the body is a wonderland.
My body is a horror land.
Yeah.
Oh my God, John Mayer.
The Elephant Man.
If for some reason ever go to a John Mayer concert, I'm making a poster board that just says like, "Hey, Elephant Man."
Elephant
Love
Man.
you and the Elephant Man.
It's just gonna
Be like,
call
what?
it out.
The
Hey,
hell's that?
Elephant Man.
Yeah, you wrote that song about it? My body's a horror land?
My
what the
body is
song
the
was.
Elephant Man. Oh, that's pretty much all we have to discuss about this episode.
But not all we have to discuss about John Mayer, the Elephant Man.
Right,
The
that's a
more we
whole
keep
nother video.
discussing, the more we're gonna come up with more.
So yeah, we'll be back with episode 6 pretty soon. Yeah, in the meantime, well, by the end of this season, we'll
Fucking
dive
Return of the Jedi?
we'll dive into Blue Velvet because for one, I love that movie, and
Yeah, we gotta do Blue Velvet.
and then yeah, Wilson has not seen that, and he will
I love it.
definitely pick up on things that maybe we don't know, like because I've seen that movie quite
Right.
a bit.
I've only seen it once, and I was like, I love this. But like after I watched Twin Peaks, I was like, there's so much like similar. It's almost like the dry run for fucking Twin Peaks. In a way.
In a way, like I said, like the kids uncovering a mystery and things like that.
Just the soap opera tone of it too. There's definitely like a soap opera ness to it.
Yeah, and it's unassuming. Like, and I'll say this, like, what he wanted to get across with the vibe and the aesthetic and the atmosphere right at the very beginning of Blue Velvet, and it's not giving anything away, but it's like this picturesque town, like very mid-mod, 50s style, where there's like people watering their lawn with their straw hat or like their fedora, just spraying their lawn and waving at the policeman as he drives by in his Packard, or like a old-timey fire truck, driving down the street with a Dalmatian in the passenger seat, those picturesque Norman Rockwell scenes. But then it drastically shifts its tone to a severed ear in a field, and you're just like, what? Like, I was thinking of like all this beauty and like these beautiful flowers that are blooming and things like that, but then you see like a gross decaying ear with flies buzzing around it, which is it kind of mirrors what happens in Twin Peaks. Like it's an interesting location. It's got beauty around it. It's got those beautiful falls. It's got landscape. It's got mountains. I mean, the surroundings are beautiful, but what happens within it is so dark and dreary. Like it's just a great setting, and yeah, they're very similar and very connected in that respect. And we will get to watch it after we get through season 1. So join us then, won't you?
Yes.
Yes.
See.
Subscribe to Fargonauts